Hey there gamers, welcome back to the Board Game Co channel, and today we have a preview of Porcus. Hey there gamers, it's Professor Meg here, and welcome back to the Board Game Co channel. Today we have a preview of Porcus by Three Headed Meeple. Now this is a current Kickstarter campaign, so you can check out the link down below for everything that they have planned. This is a sponsored preview, and this is a prototype copy in front of me, so all rules, components, and things like that are subject to change, including the box is not the final box and things like that. So definitely check out the link down below so you can see the final intended version of everything, because Porcus is going to be a competitive game for 2 to 5 or 2 to 6 players, where you are trying to acquire the most loot for yourself, where you're going to go through 8 different rounds playing cards from your hand that are going to represent different values for how much everyone is contributing to beating monsters. So you're trying to beat these different monsters together as a group, but whoever does the specific thing that that monster requires is going to claim that as victory points as well toward the end of the game. So you're all trying to work toward different things between gaining treasures, taking out these different monsters, and getting rid of any cursed chests that you acquire are all going to work toward having the most gold at the end of the game. Now in front of you, the game is set up for 3 players, and we are the warrior character here. So this is going to be our hand, and this is something that only we would see, whereas the other players have their hands here, and you would start with a cursed chest in play. So this is going to be negative points for you at the end of the game, but there are ways for you to get rid of these as well, which is something you can hope to do. Now, we are starting off as the Torchbearer, so this card means that we have a couple different benefits, and one of them is going to be that we're able to break ties when there are any true ties, which is a good benefit, but there are other benefits as well that are going to happen when the monsters come out. So we are going to be the player starting off as the Torchbearer, and to walk you through what a turn is going to look like, the player is going to reveal a monster card, and as you can see for this monster, everyone is going to be fighting off together against it, and it's going to award 7 victory points to one player. And here you can see it's going to be the player that contributes the most damage. So that's going to be right here, but it's going to have 6 health times the number of players. So as there are 3 players in this current game, it's going to have a total of 18 health. Now, this is going to be one of the benefits that the Torchbearer has, because we're going to be able to do an extra damage when we're contributing our card. Now, as I noted, the player is going to win it that does the highest amount of damage, and then finally, this is showing that if players are not able to take out this monster and defeat them together, then players are going to have to discard 3 treasure cards, which can be pretty detrimental. Right now, early in the game, players only have 1 each, but that can be a way for you to really lose a lot, because you want to try to hold on to those. So, taking a look here at your hand, you can see that players have, we do have our treasure card here, which I will get to in a bit, but we have cards that are numbered 1 through 8. So you can see the numbers down here. We have 1 through 8, and that's going to represent the strength of the cards, whereas the gold number at the top is going to be how many victory points it is for us at the end of the game if we are able to be successful against fighting the monster. So when we are able to be successful, we're able to bank that. So as you can see, a 1 can be pretty difficult to take out certain monsters, but if you are able to bank it in front of you face up, it'll be worth 12 gold at the end of the game. Now finally, players have these cards here that are going to award you treasures when you play them. So you're going to get 2 or 1 respectively, which can be another incentive for players to play those cards. So we're going to now take a look at the round, but as this current player here, we are getting that extra damage, and this is a pretty tricky monster to defeat, but it's worth a lot of victory points. So we may choose to contribute as much as we can, knowing that this is a gamble, because we need 18 total to be able to take this guy out. So these other characters definitely have to be contributing, but we are going to choose to play this card. Now, players are choosing this simultaneously and holding them face down until all players are ready. So we would choose what we want to contribute, and we're just going to choose for the other players as well. First, we will choose over here for the rogue, And for the rogue, I'm going to have them not have too much stakes in the game, but gain a benefit if they are able to be successful. So they're going to contribute this 4, hoping that other players are going after the monster, just gaining themselves some treasure along the way early game. So they're going to choose to contribute that over here. Not really too upset if they lose it, but that is a little upsetting because it is their 2 treasure card. Now the huntress over here, you do start off with a treasure. So they do have a trick up their sleeve where the treasures at the end of the game, if you don't play them, are going to be banked and be able to be placed face up as victory points for you at the end of the game. So if you don't use them for their ability, you are able to get the victory points for it. But as you can see, some things are going to discard them. So holding on to them and not using them for their ability can sometimes be dangerous because you might lose those cards. But taking a look here, the Huntress actually has one that's going to give them +2 damage. So this Huntress is going to try to also anticipate that other players are contributing a lot toward this monster, and seeing that the Torchbearer is getting that +1, they're going to contribute their 8 and hold off for now. So all players are going to have their cards at the ready, and then they will reveal them. So this is the point where players would be able to add in their different treasure cards. And for example, this treasure card here is you would be able to take a curse to cycle through the monster. So that would not necessarily add any damage right now for the warrior, but the huntress would be able to play this to do +2 damage. So now to resolve this monster, taking a look here, you can see that they're doing 10 + 9 + 4 damage, which is more than enough to take out this monster, and the huntress with her 10 is going to be the one to gain this as victory points for the end of the game. Now, because players were successful, they are going to be able to play these as well as victory points for the end of the game. This would get used for its ability and put over here. Should your cards run out for the treasure pile, you'll shuffle and form a new deck, but you can see now that players have all of these cards banked for the end of the game. Now these cursed chests you are able to get rid of as well, but if you're not able to, you can see that you'll have to offset them with positive victory points. Now, in that example, should players fail, that is when they would have their cards placed face down and you would not get victory points at the end of the game. So that's where you can see it can be very tricky to get 12 points for your one card, but if you have weaker monsters come out, that may be the best time for you to do so, or when you think that other players might be trying to win that particular monster for the benefit that it has. Now, finally, another thing that would happen is that the rogue player would draw those 2 treasures because of the 4 that they won with, so they would be able to draw these and place them into their hand. So these cursed chests are cursed on one side, but they are the treasure on the other side, so when it is in your hand, it is going to be those positive treasures instead. Now, that is how players are going to attempt to defeat these monsters together for 8 rounds. So you have your cards 1 through 8, and you're going to be playing through 8 different rounds, hopefully taking out the monsters every time, meaning that it's going to be victory points for someone. So if it's not, you'll fail, and then that monster won't be banked for anyone, and players will have to suffer the negative consequences instead. But after the 8 rounds, you'll take a look at the victory points that players were able to gain from their monsters that they had, from their victorious cards that they were able to contribute toward the monsters. They'll take any negatives from their cursed chests, and then finally gain any positive victory points for the treasures that they were able to hold onto and sneak off with for the end of the game. So at that, you'll take a look at whoever has the most gold, and that will be the winner. But there's also an advanced mode for this game. So when you add in the advanced mode, it's going to add new cards for the decks that you've already seen, but it's also going to add unique cards for each of the classes. So we'll take a look at the warrior together, but another thing that it's going to add is a witch character. So that's how you're going to be able to play with up to 6 characters instead, because someone will be able to play as the witch. Now, taking a look here is some example scoring for the Huntress character, and you can tell from looking at this character alone that they had a pretty good game, because you can see that there are 5 face-up cards that are going to score them, which tells you that the players as a whole were able to defeat 5 different monsters where there are 3 face down cards showing that they failed 3 times. But this player does have 3 monsters in front of them that they're scoring victory points for. So you can see that they were able to win 3 of the 5 different monsters that were killed in this particular game. Now you can see that they did gain a cursed chest that they weren't able to get rid of. Perhaps they gained others and that number changed throughout the game, but they are still having -2 at the end of this particular game. And then finally, they had to have ended up with these 2 treasures in their hand at the end to be able to score those for victory points. So this player here would have had a total of 34 victory points from everything here, with the monsters they had, the cards they were able to bank, their treasures, and subtracting their cursed chests. So that's an example of what your final score would look like. And now I'll show you what the advanced mode will look like for one of the classes. So here we have our warrior cards, our 8 basic cards that you would start off with. And when you are adding in the advanced cards, you will swap them out. So it shows you that you'll swap them for specific things. So for example, this one is you're swapping a 7 for a 7, but you can see that the difference here is that this one's going to be more powerful. So true to its class, the warrior is going to have more victory points awarded when they're doing more damage. So that would be one of the swaps that they would make. They would also swap an 8 for an 8. So again, they're adding those additional victory points that they're able to gain. And then finally here, they have a 10, which is the highest value in the game that they're able to contribute. So that monster that we saw earlier, if they were the torchbearer, they would have been able to do a base of 11 damage, but you would swap out the 6 for this. So now you can see where the warrior's deck really changes with what they're able to contribute. And this is something that players are keeping in mind throughout the entire game, because as you play cards, you don't have access to them anymore. So you're going to be keeping an eye out for what cards players are playing, because then you're going to know what they have left for future rounds. Porcus is going to be a game where players are all fighting together to help themselves. You're all fighting off against the same monster, so that means that everyone is contributing damage towards defeating them, but that also means that you can have a few tricks up your sleeve. So you're able to perhaps win those monsters out from other players. For example, sometimes whoever does the lowest amount of damage is the one that's able to win that monster, and that can really surprise players. But you can also fail fighting these monsters, and that can be detrimental for everyone, but perhaps it may be a round that you choose to do so because you don't really want to contribute too much and you're able to suffer the negative consequences. So this is going to be a game where you're constantly trying to weigh out not only what you want to spend now, but what you want to hold on to for the future. And as I said, you're also able to track what opponents are playing. So if they've already spent their 7s and their 8s, you know that they don't have them coming up. So if perhaps they have spent their 7s and 8s, you might use your 6s as your highest card because you know that they aren't able to add too much more on top of that. But players also are going to start gaining more and more treasures into their hands that are going to add surprises throughout the game, but can also be pretty scary if they're a chunk of points for you at the end of the game as well. So holding onto them can be just as deadly as playing them throughout the rounds. So if you'd like to see even more about Porcus, you can check out the link down below to see everything that Three-Headed Meeple has planned. I've been Professor Meg. Thank you all for watching the Board Game Code channel, and I'll see you next time. Bye!